A lot of people probably don't even notice this little thing, a 1 to 2 signal splitter. Most of the time, it's used for very ordinary purposes, nothing exciting at all. But in today's video, that's going to change. We're turning it into a DIY antenna, simple, practical, and surprisingly effective. Alright, enough talking. Let's get started. Here I have an old, inexpensive charger that still works perfectly fine. Instead of throwing it away, I decided to keep it, because in DIY, reusing parts is often the smarter choice. According to environmental organizations, electronic waste from phone chargers and small accessories adds up to a surprisingly large amount. Many of these chargers are still functional, they're just no longer used for their original purpose. In this video, we're giving this charger a new role. I'm repurposing it as a signal receiving and decoding module, taking the signal from the front-end receiver, processing it, and passing it along. At this step, as you can see, I'm soldering 2 short wires onto the charger circuit board, so it can be connected to the 1 to 2 signal splitter. Reusing old components while reducing electronic waste is one of the reasons I enjoy projects like this. Since the USB socket on the circuit board isn't needed for this setup, we can remove it directly to keep the board cleaner and avoid unnecessary components. After finishing that part, I'll enlarge the USB opening on the charger's casing, just enough to fit one connector from the signal splitter. If the 2 wires feel a bit too long, you can trim them down slightly to keep the inside neater. At this wiring step, having some hot glue on hand can be very helpful. I personally like using hot glue because it secures the wires quickly, keeps things tidy, and is easy to adjust if needed. In the next step, I'll make two simple signal receivers using this short piece of coaxial cable. Normally, coaxial cable is used to carry signals, but this time, I'm repurposing it as a signal receiving element. The signal will then travel from these two receivers, through the 1 to 2 signal splitter, and finally into the phone charger for processing. This here is a straight F-type connector. It makes it much easier to connect the coaxial cable to the signal splitter's connector, both securely and cleanly. Honestly, there's nothing that quite replaces this power socket when it comes to using it as an antenna base. It both connects to the antenna setup and provides a direct connection for the coaxial cable to receive the signal. This is a longer piece of coaxial cable. I'll connect one end of the cable to the power socket for now, and handle the other end later. For the other end of the coaxial cable, I'll add a straight F connector and a 90-degree F connector to finish the connection. Following the proper order, I'll install the straight F connector first. Then add the 90-degree F connector afterward. Alright, everything is now fully assembled. As for the final result, we won't know until we try it. So let's test it right now and see how the signal performs. Before connecting the DIY antenna to the TV, I'll first show you that the TV is currently in a no signal state. After that, we'll connect the antenna and compare the result. The signal stabilizes fairly quickly, but to see whether it's truly stable, we'll keep monitoring it for a bit longer. Even though there's a slight bit of instability, it can still be considered a success. To be more certain, I'll disconnect the cable and see how the result changes. So, starting with a few very familiar components, some of which are often considered useless or disposable, we've managed to put together a DIY antenna and test it in real-world conditions. The result isn't perfect and there's still a bit of instability at times, but the key point is that it works, and more importantly, we understand why it works. That understanding is the real value behind projects like this. DIY isn't always about replacing professional equipment. It's about making better use of what we already have, reducing waste, and learning to look at old parts from a different perspective. Still useful if used the right way. Still DIY, still familiar materials, but always something new to explore.